Greetings everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are today. As part of the Journey into Agile with Inflectra series, we are doing our second webinar, Mastering 4 Ceremonies to Deliver Agile Projects Better. My name is Dr. Sriram Rajgopalan. I have my doctoral degree in management focusing on leadership, MBA in management, MS in computer engineering, and a bachelorate degree in electronics and communication engineering. I started my career as a software engineer, progressed along as a team leader, business analyst, project manager, scrum master, and agile coach, and I have assumed the roles of director and vice president as well. I have a number of different certifications to my title. Some of them include portfolio management, program management, project management, agile, risk management, scrum master, scrum product owner, Six Sigma, green belt, and many other things. I'm also an instructional designer, a speaker, writer, and an author. I have experience teaching in different colleges in US, India, and Vietnam, and I also have corporate training experience. Today's webinar is part of the 5-part series on Journey into Agile with Inflectra. Each webinar is 1 hour long. We will reserve time at the end for questions. The webinars introduce the concept using a tool. Therefore, there is some expectation on your part to set up access with SpiraTeam. The completion certificate is based on specific requirements and passing a certification quiz. So how does the Agile by Inflectra certificate course work? You first register for the webinar, just like you did. Attend the webinar. If you are unable to attend the webinar, view the archive when available. Experiment with SpiraTeam. Take the quiz and do that for all the 5 webinars. And once you have met all the requirements, you will be able to get the certificate. There is a frequently asked questions that we have built at this point. You can access that for more additional information. So the Journey into Agile with Inflectra has 5 different webinars, and we are now focusing on Mastering 4 Ceremonies to Deliver Agile Projects Better. Earlier in our series, we discussed why Agile may not be a cure-all. Just like physical exercise, it works only when we work at it as expected. One of the foundational elements for Agile success is strategic product ownership. But what do we mean by strategic thinking? It involves the product owner's attempts to research the changes in the marketplace. This research may employ SWOT analysis where strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are carefully evaluated. Then the decision making leads to evaluating whether to organically develop or buy a commercial off-the-shelf product. The product portfolio is then made up of all the organization's products. It may comprise of many categories of products across many different product lines. An organization evaluates the products or the portfolio against the relative market share and their potential for revenue growth. The primary goal of product development and project management is to maximize the return from those high market share portfolio or products. If there is a declining market share, an organization may choose to stop subsequent development, terminate the product offering, or establish strategic partnership or spin-off arrangements. The product represents the known features a potential customer wants or the market demands. The product is implemented through a series of projects where each project is incrementally releasing features iteratively. The product owner will evaluate if the product continues to have high market share. This approach may start with additional focus studies and feasibility analysis involving technical, operational, and environmental evaluation. These 3 foundations, the strategy, portfolio, and product, lay the framework for what is called the measurable organizational value, MOV. From this MOV comes the list of functionalities the product owner wants in the product to meet the customer's demands and the performing organization's needs. If there is value in proceeding with the development of the product, the roadmap containing the product's vision is started. From the product roadmap, the product backlog is created containing the prioritized features adding value to the customer. As the product evolves, the product owner is responsible to groom the product backlog with feedback from the team and the client. From this groomed backlog comes the minimum viable product required for planning releases and iterations. A release is a group of iterations that deliver the most quality, performance, or innovative features the consumers will favor. In the Agile world, this is often known as the minimally marketable feature, MMF. The release itself will have a theme that will involve one or more iterations that cumulatively deliver a major feature to the end users. Or the releases can be time-based, like a quarterly release delivering a set of features every 3 months. The working software delivered is expected to be highly stable. Agile focuses on iterative delivery, incrementally adding features for customer verification. Iterations will have a predefined goal. It consists of a planning session followed by a period of work lasting between 1 to 4 weeks. Agile prefers shorter duration. As the team focuses working on each iteration, the team begins to use Daily Standup to reflect on their commitments, review adjustments as necessary, and self-organize to deliver on the iteration's commitment. Agile projects must embrace the notion of test and learn. So it's a change mindset. It's always difficult for organizations to adapt all Agile practices. Nevertheless, to deliver the maximum benefit based on my experience, the Agile project should focus on 6 important principles. These include product ownership, small releases, testing, refactoring, continuous integration, and Agile documentation. I have not listed them in any specific particular order, although I believe product ownership is pivotal to success. Therefore, the team's ability to self-organize and own their commitments is instrumental in Agile projects. For instance, when the user story is discussed and committed, it is the team that comes up with the required tasks that need to be done. This approach differs from how some plan-driven project managers create and assign tasks to the team members. The team's ownership to produce value, extrinsic and intrinsic, without compromising quality and operate within the iteration's constraints is a fundamental shift in both the strategic and operational thinking. Now, if I were to create themes around the 6 Agile practices that I have found essential, I find 3 themes. These are the ultimate focus on the value, ability to keep small batch sizes to get incremental feedback in short amount of time to do any course correction, and elimination of any waste, product, process, and procedure. Different Agile frameworks approach these principles differently. On the one end is a lightweight framework that is less prescriptive. Some of these frameworks include Lean from a manufacturing sector, Kanban suitable for a service sector, Scrum and Extreme Programming for software product development. On the other extreme is full set of Agile approaches that are slightly more involved in embracing the Agile framework. These approaches include Dynamic System Development Method, DSDM, Crystal, Test-Driven Development, Feature-Driven Development, and Agile Unified Process. Based on my own experience, regardless of the framework applied, Agile project management should drive 4 critical values. By adopting the principle of technical and commercial teams collaborating on a frequent basis and using working software as the primary measure for progress, Agile projects should increase value to the customer and increase quality to the software. By eliminating waste and focusing on architecture and technical debt maintenance, Agile projects should also reduce the cost of operations and reduce time to market. This mindset of adapting to change is not easy. Frequently, people abuse Agile approaches to welcoming change as late as possible. This is like the management coming and saying, from now on, we are going to change how we do things here. We need to be agile. And the team asks, what does it mean? And the team concludes, nothing really changes except that managers, designers, and architects have an excuse for changing their requirements on Fridays at 4 p.m. Now, this may be an exaggeration, but imagine how the team would feel adapting to changes on Thursday when the delivery is due on the immediate Friday. These interpretations are incorrect because once the commitment is made to an iteration, changes are generally not recommended. Again, based on my personal experience delivering agile projects and coaching teams, I believe there are at least 6 patterns that can lead to an agile project's failure. The first among these is the lack of strategic vision on the product being developed. If the product owner does not continuously groom the backlog and keep enough stories in a get-ready state for sprint planning or iteration planning, then Agile will fail as the team cannot deliver continuous value. They get demotivated and lose credibility in front of the leadership. The second reason for Agile failure is the team's lack of self-organization. If the team doesn't progress to and remain in the norming and performing stages, then the team seeks constant guidance on work to be delivered. Slowly and steadily, the team's ability to deliver value will diminish and the team will disintegrate. Management culture can be an impediment to the team to delivery. There are many ways this management culture can manifest. For instance, adding work to an individual team member outside of sprint commitments misaligns their priority. The organizational culture may be an impediment to agile transformation. The team, for instance, may be on learning wheels when it comes to new technology and training is not considered a priority. The roles of product owner or scrum master may be combined, creating conflict of interest. These are all examples of how the team may not have the courage to try experiments. When fear of failure exists, agile teams will become fragile. The team itself may not keep the dashboards updated. The metrics may be manipulated, and the lack of transparency in the backlog size, velocity delivered, and technical debt maintenance will lead to disagreements disrupting the agile project's value and success. When multiple teams exist and their work product has to be integrated, then the continuous silos around functional organization will continuously haunt value delivery. Combined with the lack of transparency, we will continue to create a perfect recipe for failure. While leadership across all agile transformation is pivotal to address these challenges, Agile promotes 4 important ceremonies that the team can use as a pulse check or health monitor to address these challenges. In fact, the Agile coach, Scrum Master, product owner, or the Agile project manager should understand the importance of these ceremonies to effectively use them to keep the Agile projects continue to increase customer value, increase product quality, reduce cost to operations, and reduce time to market. So what are these 4 ceremonies? These are the iteration or sprint planning, daily stand-up, review, and retrospective. During the sprint planning or the iteration planning, the team estimates and commits on the stories they can deliver based on the prioritized ready state MVP stories in the product backlog. The progress on their commitment is supported by the daily stand-up. In the review at the end of the iteration, the team showcases the work completed for the Agile team and other stakeholders. The Agile team then conducts a retrospective on what they have learned, could be improved, needs to be stopped. It should be noted here that the review sessions are product focused, whereas the retrospectives are process focused. According to the 2018 State of Agile survey released by version 1, these 4 ceremonies continue to be rated higher. While 90% claim using a daily stand-up, only 85% claim doing the retrospective and 80% claim doing the review. To get the maximum benefit, Agile projects should not compromise on any one of these ceremonies. So we will focus on some of these concepts in depth over here. The goal of the iteration planning is for the team to select the appropriate mix of value-added stories. These stories represent the minimally marketable feature. Approximate guidance is to have 4 hours for a 2-week iteration. The owners include product owner, scrum master, and the team. The prerequisite of a good iteration planning is having a risk-adjusted prioritized product backlog. This means that the product owner is grooming the backlog continuously to deliver the MVP features, refining the MMF stories for iteration planning. One recommendation that I follow is that if the team is working on the nth iteration, the backlog should be in a ready state with prioritized stories for at least n+2 sprints ahead. The result is that a list of stories is committed to the sprint backlog to be delivered on that sprint. Now, depending upon whether velocity-driven or commitment-driven planning is considered, the type and the number of stories committed may be different for an iteration. There are several reasons for the iteration planning to fail. For example, if the product owner is not effectively engaging with the stakeholders or doing the market research specific to the product, then adequate number of value-added stories are not in a ready state for the team to estimate. The lack of priority and the lack of product strategy alignment to the organizational strategy leads to the team delivering stories that do not add customer, business, and technical value, raising questions on the iteration planning. Furthermore, the team themselves may not be cross-functional and self-organized. When this happens, the team expects direction and resolution from others, failing to support each other in the Agile team. The estimation is weak, tasks are not identified, and the stories are not getting done. The velocity realized from the earlier sprints due to poor planning continue to impact subsequent planning for forthcoming iteration. Another challenging smell scenario is one individual playing the roles of both the Scrum Master and the product owner. When the product owner plays the Scrum Master role, the responsibilities of the Scrum Master to keep the product owner in check to have the n+2 stories defined or engage with additional stories to remove impediments for the Agile team is compromised. The product owner also is unable to do substantial market research and engage with business stakeholders. The availability of this individual for the team is also questionable. As a result, the responsibilities of neither role is fulfilled as effectively and efficiently as it should be. There are also some opportunities with the transparency of requirements in the backlog for the team. First of all, the backlog transparency emphasizes the value of what is coming. It fosters team collaboration as the team can take part in grooming with their own additional thoughts. Testers can also start thinking in terms of the test cases, enabling the bidirectional traceability to the requirements. So the team is reasonably well prepared to march into the iteration planning session. There are also several games in Agile setting. Think of these games as interactive group sessions promoting learning and engagement within the team. The games that help iteration planning include Product Backlog, Buy a Feature, and Prune the Tree. Now these games have been adopted and modified by many teams. So my brief suggestions here are not the only way to conduct these games. One game for iteration planning is Buy a Feature. The goal of this game is to prioritize the stories. The product owner should create a list of potential features associating a price with each feature. Some of these features should be priced high so that no one customer can buy them. Then the customers are given fake money, like the monopoly money, to pay for the features they want the most. We can also encourage customers to pool their money to buy especially important or expensive features. The result is that the list of MVP stories that stakeholders can align on. The product box is another game. Here, a physical box is used to limit the most relevant stories for the iteration. Depending upon the dimension of the box chosen, the goal shifts to the specific features that we can use to highlight on the 6 sides of the box to emphasize the value of that iteration. The prune the tree is an approach to gather additional insights for specific features, refining the benefit for the customer, business, or the team. This helps in moving towards understanding the done criteria for the feature, facilitating planning and estimation. The next ceremony is the Daily Standup. During the sprint, Daily Standup is used by the team to report progress on their sprint commitments. This is also an opportunity for the team to get feedback on their work in progress and raise impediments challenging their commitments. The owners required in this Daily Standup involve the team, Scrum Master, and Product Owner. The prerequisite for this Daily Standup is that sprint commitments are finalized in the sprint backlog and the Product Owner is available for the team. Recall that one of the Agile principles is that the business and technical team collaborate daily. The result of the effective Daily Standup is that the Scrum Master addresses the required impediments for the team to reach the done status on their commitments. The team doesn't engage in micromanagement. For instance, instead of waiting for providing an update on an impediment on the following day, the team collaborates more frequently throughout the day. They also avoid unnecessary interruption from members outside of the Agile team so that they can maintain focus on the sprint commitments. The focus is one of the goals of time boxing. The Daily Stand-Up is often limited to 15 minutes. It is called a stand-up because people don't get too comfortable sitting in a comfortable chair. Instead, they come prepared and are laser focused to provide clear, concise, and comprehensive updates. This is done by answering the questions: what did they do yesterday? What are they planning to do today? And what are the impediments to success? When the team is part of larger enterprise agile team or scrum of scrum teams, one's team's work package may come to another team. In such cases, responding to an optional question, what is coming to another team's way, helps. The seeds of failure for the Daily Stand-Up are many. Primarily, the unavailable product owner is the major challenge. Conflicts of interest arise when one individual acts as both the product owner and Scrum Master roles. When the Scrum Master becomes very transactional, micromanaging the tasks, treating the Daily Stand-Up as a status check meeting, the self-organization is questioned. Alternatively, when the team is not mature enough on the agile approaches and is not self-organizing, they would not come prepared. Interruption from members outside of the team requesting demos on uncompleted work is also a challenge. The physical environment itself may not be conducive for osmotic communication to take place, for people to collaborate frequently and make the Daily Stand-Up a success. Last but not the least, the time zone and technology related challenges when remote, distributed and virtual team members are present will hamper gathering adequate feedback and collaborate. Fortunately, some of the tools used in agile approaches also have reporting widgets and other functionality that somewhat minimizes some of these challenges. For instance, using a reporting widget to automatically compute the burn up or burn down based on the progress reported on the tasks and stories marked for completion helps. Similarly, the common features on the tasks and workflow guidance allows the team to provide the required updates necessary even for remote teams to pick up work from where another team member left. It should be noted, however, that no tool can completely replace the collaboration that happens in the Daily Stand-Up. So what games can help the Daily Stand-Up? I have found using valuable paper airplane, matchup canvas, and daily scrum game. Let's take a quick look at the valuable paper airplane. The goal of this game is to allow the team to agree on the definition of done. The steps involve creating a list of important parts and functions to a paper airplane so that it flies. Bringing that analogy of the plane to the user story, what are the critical elements of the user story to ensure that the story flies forward throughout the sprint and lands correctly at the end of the sprint? This agreement on the definition of done helps with completing the story and claiming a success. The matchup canvas is analogous to a persona card from each Agile team member. In other words, what are their skills and domain competencies? This helps the new or existing team member to know who the go-to person is for specific expertise they bring to the table to facilitate collaboration and problem solving. The daily Scrum game is played mostly in the earlier stages of the team, trying to understand their role in the daily stand-up. Here, the specific cues of to do, in progress, and done are created. The Scrum Master comes with scenario-based user stories and facilitate a game, helping the team to understand the self-organization and collaboration needed for success. The next ceremony is the review. The goal of this ceremony is for the team to report their progress on done and not done stories. The focus here is on the product as the team showcases their work, gathers feedback through inspection and adaptation to the suggestions. The product owner, team, and Scrum Master should be present for this ceremony. This is one ceremony. Additional stakeholders can be invited to see the work. The prerequisite for a successful review is the availability of the product owner, as the accountability of accepting the completed work rests with the product owner. The product backlog must be in a good state for the product owner to refine any existing stories or add new stories based on the work shown and associate the priority in preparation for the sprint planning. Recall that the product owner is available daily for the daily stand-up. So the product owner should really be aware of what sprint commitments have been met so that appropriate additional stakeholders are invited. A product owner and Scrum Master will also use this review as an opportunity to highlight the work, gather feedback, and motivate the team. As a result, the review sessions help gather stakeholder alignment depending upon the external environmental changes such as the market demand, and arrive at appropriate criteria for the MMF for subsequent iterations. The challenges manifest in a few ways. The review is more like a show and tell, where the team members responsible for the user story or feature do the demo. This provides an opportunity for the team member to inspect and adapt. Otherwise, the opportunity is lost when the product owner or the Scrum Master does the demo on members' behalf. The review is also not an opportunity only for the demo of the software product. Sometimes there may be user stories for creating the compliance or audit documentation required for business continuity. Sometimes there may be help documentation created for service desk or customers. The review of these documentations should not be deprioritized and removed from the review sessions, because these work products also stand to benefit from incremental feedback. The product owner not owning the product backlog manifests in the form of not getting the product backlog updated based on product-based lessons learned, grooming with new stories, updating existing stories, and appropriately prioritizing them. Opportunities from the review is basically the transparency of the backlog. It augments the team's responsibility as they review stories for grooming and planning. Collectively, together everyone achieves more, which is what a team is meant to be. Among the several games helping review, Speedboat is very common. It allows the team to gather feedback from the stakeholders and team to promote learning. Understand what accelerates, decelerates, and stops the boat. In other words, what should we start doing, continue doing, and stop doing? As a result, the team understands their own improvement opportunities. Additionally, the larger organization also understands what opportunities and challenges exist outside of the Agile team. When done properly, the use of this game in the review and retrospective sessions demonstrates continuous improvement, operational excellence, leadership, and commitment to make subsequent iterations better. The pass-on perfection is an approach for the team to give constructive feedback. They use the syntax of yes and approach. For example, yes, this demo is fine, confirming this feature, and you can consider this as an opportunity to improve by doing something. Such approaches emphasize the test and learn principle and motivate the team to do better. To give constructive feedback, the feedback game is another opportunity. Somewhat similar to the daily Scrum game, the Scrum Master or the product owner comes with a list of hypothetical scenarios on how participants can practice giving feedback. Retrospective. Now this is our final ceremony. Here, the focus shifts to the process and the team inspects and adapts, evaluating what's working and what's not. Time boxed again for 1 or 2 hours for a 2-week sprint, the product owner, team, and Scrum Master own this ceremony. Typically, others are not involved in the retrospective, but depending upon what is being delivered, it is possible to have a separate retrospective engaging customers and other stakeholders as well. Availability of the product owner and the Scrum Master is again a critical prerequisite. Everyone in the Agile team should be able to provide feedback. When evaluating the feedback, the focus should be on the challenge noted and not necessarily on the member raising the point. As the focus is to continuously learn and adapt processes to help in the delivery of work, retrospective is mandatory and non-negotiable. The result is that owners are identified in addressing these challenges so that we start doing what is necessary, continue doing what is working, and start doing what is not adding value. The primary challenge for retrospective is that it turns out to be a blame game. Every idea has merit, and people should practice active listening to evaluate the value of the suggestion. The other challenge is that the retrospective is treated as a documentation exercise. It's not. The rightful owners within the Agile team or outside of the Agile team have to be identified and the required processes reviewed for continuous improvement. By creating a transparent backlog of such retrospective, the updates can be tracked, increasing the accountability, positively contributing to the increased value delivery of every subsequent iteration. Since retrospective focuses on gathering feedback that needs to be acted on, most of the games for review also support the retrospective. We saw examples of how to use the speed board and yes and games before. The glad, sad, mad is another approach of similarly identifying things that add positive contribution, that is glad, and the things that are slowing us down, that is mad, and things that are not working as effectively as they should, that is sad. Now let's turn to the demo using SpiraTeam. This tool can support iteration planning, daily stand-up, and retrospective. Since the review actually is a demo of the work product itself, bringing up the working software or review of the documentation is outside the scope of this tool. Although any feedback gathered can still be accommodated using this tool. Currently, I'm in my Spira instance and I'm actually going to go into my library information system project. Now, within this particular tool, when you look at the top, you have the planning, and inside that planning is where you have a planning board. This helps in the iteration planning. So as members are coming and adding new user stories, or the product owner is trying to refine the user stories, these information come up over here. So we have a list of requirements that we have added at this point. All these things are requirements that are in the backlog. Now, assuming these things are refined, in the iteration planning exercise, people can point it. And this particular tool gives some additional information. So when you look at this right-hand side, you have the detailed view, incident, tasks, and test cases. Now this helps because the iteration planning can be much better where the team reviews information that should be done as part of the iteration planning. For example, the number at the top over here is going to be the actual points that people are going to estimate. Now, the actual points people estimate itself is outside the scope of our discussion right now. Now, after that, you also have a couple of additional numbers that show up here that are integrated because this is one stop application lifecycle management tool. And now, the first number over here that is in orange is the actual tasks that needs to be created by the Agile team for them to actually complete these user stories. So you have a single stop view of what are these particular tasks that needs to be done. Similarly, you have another number that shows up, and that number is going to be this test cases. So how many test cases actually exist for you to actually look at this particular requirements and complete it? So you have the immediate view and transparency to both the tasks as well as the test cases that needs to be done. And by clicking on this task at the top over here, these views show up, and you can basically start going into each and every one of them. So by hovering over here, you are able to see, develop a new subject, create subject object insert method, and write the actual queries. All these things are coming up over here. And what are the test cases? How do I go about logging into the system? So this gives you a bird's eye view of, do we have the requirements, the test cases, and the tasks all properly in this place? So you can come here and start reviewing these things to say, all right, this is pretty much ready, and I can move forward with locking this for my sprint commitments. Now, assuming this is looking good, you can basically come here and start dragging and dropping, and now you are creating the sprint commitments very easily. So that's the iteration planning exercise. It gives you the bird's eye view because everything is transparent and you are able to come prepared for the actual iteration planning. The next one is going to be the actual dashboard itself. So I'm going to go to the dashboard here. So when I go into the dashboard, a number of different things come up. So one of the things that I have added is the requirement graph widgets. If you recall from previous discussions, this is adjustable widgets. Okay, so when you click on this plus symbol over here, add items, this particular tool gives you a number of potential possible widgets that are already available, and you can pick one of them. Like for instance, you can pick one of these things and then add them to the left side or the right side, and then you are able to see those details. And similarly, what I have added for this particular exercise is the requirement graph. So by selecting this particular filter here at the top, which shows whether it is the single release or a particular iteration and all those things, you can actually start building the different types of graphs right over here. So this is now the requirement burned down, and you can actually see how the requirement is actually building up. And you can build these things. The data for all these things is the input people are providing in the actual user stories and tasks and things like that, user stories for instance, and then you can go and monitor the requirement velocity pretty quickly over here, and you can also see how much requirements are being actually covered. So all these things are pretty quickly available here right in this electronic dashboard. So it saves people some time in building all these things manually, if you're doing those kind of things. The similar approach is the task. So you can basically look at all the different tasks that are associated and how these tasks are actually, burning down, burning up, and, the velocity, all those things. You can start, computing all these things right over here. Okay, so this is two important graphs for you to report widgets that are available from SpiraTeam to help with that daily sprint progress. And the third thing is going to be the retrospective. Now, as I had already mentioned, the games that help retrospective could be applicable for both review sessions as well as for the retrospective sessions, because reviews focus on the product, retrospective focus on the process. So I have created a separate project called Retrospective, primarily because all the requirements that you create from the retrospective as to how to improve the process and all those things need not be just associated with the Agile team itself. It could be outside of the Agile team itself, so that this particular thing looks a lot more specific to the product. So when I go to the retrospective project, I'm going to show you a section called component. And the best way to get to that component is by going into the administration screen, where if you have access to that. So right over here is the edit component. So when I click on that particular edit component section, you see I have added begin, continue, and stop. This is similar to, start doing, start, continue doing, and stop doing. So these are the cues that I have created. Now, once I am here, I can come again into my planning board. People can start, providing their input as to what worked or what did not work and all those things. And if anonymity is required, maybe this information can be provided with an anonymous user login, and people can come here and update those things. So there is still anonymity maintained. And so you can create these things. So I have talked about a couple of, scenarios throughout my presentation. One person doing both the Scrum Master and Product Owner role. That's one of the Agile scenarios. Another Agile smell scenarios is, daily stand-up not getting really, time boxed. So I have created these kind of things at this point. Now people can come here and, add requirements. So, additionally, each and everyone becomes a user story. Like, this is not working, that is working. We need to continue doing this. We have to evaluate all those things. Now you can click on this and go into the drill down view of the actual requirements itself, where you can add additional thoughts, additional comments, and track all these things like, yeah, this is important, this is an example of what happened, and things like that. You can add some custom properties. I have added a like here, which you can come here and keep incrementing the count, especially if you log in as anonymous user. You can keep updating these things. So now what I have basically done is I have created a means by which all the different processes that I have created, or the feedback that I have provided, are really being tracked. So these can be assigned to different members within the Agile team or outside of the Agile team for process review and things like that, so that there is more transparency. So you can come back here and drag and drop them. So all these things can be done over here. Okay, so that's the retrospective. Okay, so let's turn back to our presentation. So in summary, all Agile projects should uphold the 4 ceremonies. These are not negotiable: iteration or sprint planning, the daily sprint review, and retrospective. These are very critical for doing and delivering Agile projects better. And the focus should be to improve the transparency, inspection, and adaptability. As a result, finally, we are focusing on those 4 important things that I mentioned: increasing value to the customer, increasing quality to the product, reducing time to the market, and reducing cost to the operations. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to either Ms. Thea or to me for content-related questions. For course administration-related questions, please reach out to marketing@inflectra.com. The next step is for you to register for the 3rd webinar in this series, and thanks for watching.